G'day and welcome to the Harley Roadshow. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're a regular, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the GoPro Hero 7 Black. And we're going to specifically talk about Pro Tunes and how to get the most out of this little beauty. But before we start, I want to give a big shout out to one of my subscribers, and I subscribe to his channel as well because it's a great channel. That's Moto G Spot. So Moto G Spot, I'll put the link up the top here. He sent me out a fridge magnet, a couple of nice stickers, all that sort of stuff. So I really appreciate the support there, mate. And I'll be sure to tune into every video that comes out. And make sure all you guys tune into every video that comes out from Moto G Spot because it's a great channel. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Okay, so again, I'm going to assume that you guys already know how to turn this GoPro on. So let's skip that. Now, what this is specifically about is Pro Tunes. Now, what Pro Tunes is, so the way to turn Pro Tunes on is, now, you can do the same thing with the Hero 5 and 6, but this is specifically, what I'm talking about here is the Hero 7 Black. But the 5 and 6 is very similar, so you'll be able to follow along. Just the difference is, in those things, to get to that menu, you swipe right. This one here, we just click on this button there, okay? So as you can see, when it comes out of the box and the first time you turn it on, it's got Pro Tunes off, okay? So what we first want to do is click that button there. What that does now is enable you to turn Pro Tunes on, and now you see a whole heap of stuff comes up on the menu. Now, if you saw my last video on the microphone stuff, you'll see that the Pro Tune setting for microphones is down here, and what that does there, I'll go through it just quickly. It separates your mic. So you've got an auto, a wind, and a stereo mic setting, okay? And if you want to see that, I'll put the link above here and you can have a look yourself as to how to get the best sound out of your GoPro. But short answer is put it into stereo and you generally get the best look there. The first one I'm going to look at here is shutter speed. Look, for most of you guys, look, this is a beginner's thing. I wouldn't be messing around too much with shutters. Suffice to say that what shutter does is it dictates how much light comes into the camera. I would just leave that setting in auto for the time being. It'll be much simpler for you, and I don't really think it's going to make that much difference to your footage, especially doing a bit of moto vlogging. It's more, you know, when you get down the track, if you want to do more advanced stuff, by all means, have a play around with it. But suffice to say, just for now, let's leave that one in auto. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is EV compensation. So basically what EV compensation is you can adjust your exposure, okay? So you can adjust your exposure by 0.5 increments. So you can either go, you know, up or down. And what it's basically doing is, again, if you're out filming and you're finding that it's, you know, your video is getting, the light's getting like too bright or blown out, you can adjust it up and down by 0.5. You can see as you go through, it just changes slightly. Okay, so it's a bit darker. Okay, but default is 0. Okay, you can adjust a lot of that in your post-production, and for the time being, until unless you really want to play around with it, or unless you're finding things are really getting blown out, you can maybe adjust it. But like I said, I most of the time shoot in, just leave it in 0. The next thing we're going to look at is sharpness. Now, when it comes out of the box in default, it's in high. I tend to like it to put it into medium. The reason for that is if you want to sharpen it up in your post-production, you can. Sometimes the sharpness can be too sharp. I mean, there's another setting there which some people like to do, and they put it into low. And then what that does is they do all that. They sharpen everything up in their post-production. But you know, I think medium's fine. If you want to sharpen it up later, you can. But pretty much, it gives you a nice, almost a perfect picture in medium, I think, anyway. So the next thing we're going to look at is your ISOs. You've got an ISO minimum and an ISO maximum. All right. Now, when it comes straight out of the box, it's set at 100 minimum and 1600 maximum. And what that basically does is it determines how sensitive the sensor in your camera is to light. So at 1600, it's going to allow a lot more light in. So what you want to do, if you're filming during the day, you probably want to knock that down to, say, about 400, okay? And what that'll do is, you know, if you get a sudden burst of light or the sun comes in, it doesn't flare it out as much as it can. If you're going to film at night, you're probably going to want to allow a little bit more light in, so you know, you can bump it up to 1600 like it was before, okay? And that will allow, you know, more light to come in. So those two settings are something you can play around with if you want to. If you don't want to, like if you want to leave it in automatic, by all means leave it in automatic.
I just try and keep it between that 1 to 400, so the light, so it doesn't let too much noise in, what they call noise. Yeah, you'll find if you're shooting during the day, between 1 and 400 will give you the best outcome in your videos. The next one we're going to look at is your white balance. Okay, so basically what white balance is the lower, so it's measured in Kelvin. Okay, so the lower your Kelvin, the cooler the color temperature is going to be. The higher the Kelvin, the warmer it's going to be. So cooler means more blues in your video, warmer means more reds and stuff in your video. Again, I just leave it on auto. And you can adjust those things again in your production when you're doing your editing. There's, in your software, most of you will have the ability to change the warmth or the temperature of the color. So again, leave that in auto. The least you play around with that sort of stuff, especially when you're first getting started. What I don't want you to do is get confused by it. Okay, so just leave it in auto for now. But like I said, basically what it is the lower the number, the cooler the temperature, the higher the number, the warmer the temperature, which gives you more reds. Okay, simple. The next thing we have is color. Now, each camera has its own sort of color settings in it. This GoPro has its own color things, and I think the GoPro colors are fine. I don't think there's any problem with them, but some people like to muck around with it, and you can put it into flat, and when you do your post-production, you bring the colors in yourself and do color correction there. But for the most part, I think I would just leave it in the GoPro settings. I think the colors are fine in GoPro. I don't have an issue with it. Like I said, let's not overcomplicate stuff. Let's just keep it in as simple as possible and live in the GoPro color system itself. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the resolution and frames per second, and let's click on that. Okay, so that's your 1080. Now the problem with 4K is okay, but the problem with 4K is the camera, especially these ones, they tend to overheat a bit. So I tend to shoot everything in 2.7, and I move that into 60. Okay. And what that does, I've noticed that when you upload to YouTube, that gives you almost the perfect picture. What the 60 does is allow you to, when you do your production, you can you can change it to slow mo if you want to, without too much jerking around when you see the final product. So yeah, I put everything in 2.7 and 60. That stops that whole overheating business that happens with some of the GoPros, and the 60 allows you to do a bit of slow mo stuff. The field of view. Now there's two things with the field of view. Okay, when I'm talking to you guys, I shoot in linear. All right, that gives you a tighter field of view. It's a more natural feel to it. When I shoot the stuff like that's, if I'm got the GoPro down low and I'm shooting towards the front of the motorcycle with the wheel in shot, I change that to wide. I keep it in a wide field of view. But talking to you guys, it's always linear. The other way, wide. And you got the third section, you got super view. Now super view is like really, really, really wide. It gives you almost like a fisheye lens. I don't really use it that much, but because it looks unnatural, I either use wide or, like I said, linear. The next one we've got is stabilization. Okay, just leave that in auto. I don't know why you'd ever want to turn that off, but because basically what your stabilization does is make sure you've got a nice smooth picture all the time, especially if you're doing your moto vlogs with vibration and stuff. Keep that in auto, because like I said, I don't know why you'd ever want to turn it off. Maybe there might be some reason, but I can't think of any at the moment. So leave that one in auto. The last thing we've got is raw audio. The out of the box setting is it's off, and I would leave it in off unless you're going to, for some reason in post production, do a bit of editing with your audio. What RAW does, it actually records a separate audio track, so you can actually adjust that audio when you're doing your editing. I don't think many of you guys are going to do that, and I generally leave that in off, but it's there if you want to do it.
So once again, I hope that's helped you with your GoPro questions. I hope I've answered some of them. If you've got any more questions, feel free to leave me a question in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I've kept it fairly simple. There's you can get more in depth, but I think honestly for most of us, what I've explained there is going to be plenty for you guys to worry about. Like I said, if there's more detail you want to go into, please drop me a line, and I'm happy to answer those questions. But for now, thanks for joining again. Remember, take the time to make someone smile. We'll see you next time on the Harley Road Show.